So when was the last time you saw developmental projects in your area? Now we're talking the District Assembly Common Fund, and Ghana's commitment to decentralization is incorporated in the 1992 Constitution. To achieve participatory democracy, the Constitution creates an enabling platform for the setting up of conditional grants by the central government to assist metropolitan, municipal and district assemblies, that's the MMDAs. But since the establishment of the District Assembly's Common Fund in 1993, funds have been disbursed to the assemblies. These funds are aimed at promoting local level development. But over the years, we've heard that the District Assembly Common Fund has not been used for its intended purposes. Probably they've been having challenges because a lot of their projects are also not completed. And so Send Ghana took the mantle and decided to do a report of findings into why the District Assembly Common Funds are not functioning well. And so on my banner this morning, we'll be exploring those issues. And I have with me in the studio Clara Osei-Boateng, and she is with her colleague Rachel Jaban. They're all from Send Ghana. They'll be helping me understand what the findings of their report is talking about and what recommendations they've had in those findings. Good morning, ladies.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for joining me. Your report talks about the District Assembly Common Fund. First of all, briefly tell me what's the objective of your findings or this report?
First of all, let me give you a bit information about Send Ghana. I'm sure Send Ghana has now become a household name when you mention social accountability in Ghana. Precisely, we've been working to promote local level development, support citizens to get involved in the development process. So basically, what we've done with the District Assembly Common Fund over the years is that we've been monitoring its implementation and utilization. And this started in 2010. Initially, we looked at compliance with the utilization guideline, which is provided for municipals and metropolitans and district assemblies in Ghana. And then we also focused on the 2%, which is set aside for persons with disability. So for this fourth round, this is our fourth round monitoring, what we wanted to look at is to see how the fund is utilized for local development. And so this is what this research focused on. The purpose, obviously, is to contribute to improved use of the resources for local development in Ghana, which is what the act or the fund was established to do.
And what criteria did you use for this finding, and what revelations did you have in these in the report?
Basically, Send operates in 4 regions in Ghana. We are in Greater Accra, we are in the 3 northern regions. And so this is where consistently we've done our monitoring. So for consistency's sake, we focused on these 4 regions, especially so that when we talk about poverty indices in Ghana, the 3 northern regions are highest. For some time, Greater Accra, urban poverty was also increasing. So these were the reasons why we focused on these 4 regions. And so we did a random selection of 28 municipals, metropolitans, and district assemblies for the research.
Rachel, you want to add more?
Yes, and we, for the methodology, we also had focus group discussions in 28 communities, which was also selected randomly from the districts that the research was done in. And we selected particular people because you can't just go into a community and interview them. You may want people who have prior knowledge about the District Assembly Common Fund. So we had opinion leaders, assembly members, some teachers and health workers, youth members also being part of this focus group discussion. So in all, 255 committee members were interviewed to get their perspective on what the District Assembly Common Fund was. So we looked at the planned and implemented projects from 2010 to 2013. And we also looked at the benefits from the District Assembly Common Fund project. And we also looked at how these benefits were distributed. But our focus was on physical structures, because if you go to trainings and stuff, we cannot go in to look at them, whether it's actually been done. But for physical structures, we can look at it and be able to ascertain that this were what the funds were used for.
Reading a report, I had a sense that almost half of the projects that were started from 2010 to 2013 have not been completed. What are the things that you saw, or what were the findings? What does the findings talk about? What did you find in the communities you went?
Okay. We realized that from the communities, it was due to delay of funds, which they already knew, and from assembly too, it was delay of funds that caused it, and also due to bureaucratic processes within the assembly and assembly commissioning projects. We also had, from a community perspective, they also thought that some assemblies, new assemblies being created, also had an issue to play in the delay of projects. So, for instance, you have an assembly that it's a municipal that has to be, a new assembly has to be created from it. Then the project location is in between. Then you have to hold on to make sure that the assembly is created before the project is completed.
Clara, you want to
let me
say
just
something?
say that, I mean, if you look at the reasons which accounted for the delay, and before then, let me correct that we are saying that almost half were not completed on time. Yeah. And 43% of the reason was because there's delay and transfer of the fund from the central government.
Okay.
The other 43 reasons has to do with long bureaucratic processes and delay the assembly even inspecting the project to allow contractors to continue to do their work. Others has to do with deliberate actions just to delay contractors for reasons that we thought were not very, very good. And so these were the major reasons why that's from the district assembly's perspective. For the communities, they thought that, oh, the money wasn't coming, that's why the projects were not being completed on time, or new districts had been created. But from the assembly's point of view, these were the major reasons why these were not completed on time. Of course, there were also incidences of abandoned projects, as we always have seen in Ghana. So some of these things we thought were worrying, and that we need to have a second look at them to ensure that when we initiate development projects, at least they are implemented on time and completed and handed over to the communities for use.
Okay, you talk about abandoned projects, and is it that the projects have been completed, the facility is there, but the people are not using it, or it's been started and it's not been completed, it's just been abandoned?
I think they fall within those two categories, as you mentioned. There are projects that have stalled, let's put it that way, not abandoned, but it has stalled because the resources are not coming, and so it's not been completed.
Okay.
And then we have projects where it's been completed, but there's delay in commissioning the projects to enable the communities to use it. That's also one part. The other one is that the district assemblies are not inspecting it to approve of it, to hand it over to the communities. And then there are projects that the communities are protesting the use of it because it's cited at locations that they do not like. And so those ones are either being utilized on a very low level or they are not being utilized at all.
Yeah, this brings to bear the consultation that goes into these projects. Normally, do they consult the people, or do they involve the people in the kind of projects they're going to do for them? What did your findings say regarding this?
Yeah, a higher percentage, about 98%, said they were consulted from the assembly perspective, that were consulted. And from the community perspective, about 85% were consulted. But the consultation was done in different ways. We had some being consulted through the assembly members. Others said were consulted through the medium-term development plan. At the stage at which they plan projects within the next 4 years, they said they were consulted. Some were through public forums, others through their opinion leaders.
Okay.
So there was some level of consultation.
Okay, if there were consultation, then what accounts for the abandoning the projects or not using some of the facilities?
I think the major challenge we found out there, especially when those that said they consulted their citizens when they were developing the medium-term development plan. As my colleague rightly mentioned, the medium-term development plan is often done for 4 years. And so this is done through consultative processes. Communities will indicate what their needs are and which projects that they prefer. But then in the course of implementation, as we assessed about 11 medium-term development plans and the projects which were planned for that period, and we observed that just 7.3% of that was implemented. So in other words, all the inputs that the communities gave, just 7.3% of their inputs, as far as this assembly common fund projects were concerned, were implemented. So obviously the other projects which were implemented were not those that the communities selected or those that the communities were consulted on. And a number of reasons account for this. The assemblies explained that in most cases the resources are inadequate, and also the delay, as we've mentioned over and over again, and therefore they are not able to execute the medium-term development plan to its logical conclusion, implement every project that is in it. There are also instances where there are directives from the central government to divert some of the resources to government flagship projects. And for that matter, then the resources which was planned to implement those projects consulted with the community has to be put aside for the government flagship project. So these are some of the reasons that account for the non-completion of some of the DACF projects.
And abandoning or not using facilities. Yes. But some of what your report captures here also says delay in handing over facility to communities for use and poor access to facility by PWDs. What really was the case with persons with disability? Let's hear Rachel.
So with PWDs, in terms of structures, there's supposed to be an access for PWDs, but I realized that most of the structures did not have access for PWDs. So in a community like Posom in Bawku Municipal, there's a toilet facility which the rooms are very small, so how do you enter with a wheelchair? And there's not even an access for the wheelchairs to even go in, so then PWDs do not have access to such facilities. And boreholes too, the stairs are too high, even in some school buildings. You have just stairs without access for PWDs. So these are some of the challenges for them. So in terms of distribution, they do not have access to it. The buildings are there, the facility is there, but they cannot utilize it.
Let's look at the causes of delay in projects. Let's take the issues one after the other. And Clara, we're saying that bureaucratic processes involved in awarding contracts. What exactly were the bureaucratic nature of the processes? What did you find when you went on the field?
I think in public financial management in Ghana, there are procurement laws that assemblies have to follow to award contracts. As I said, St. Ghana, we've been doing this work for some time, and these issues have come up. I remember there was an instance, one of the our respondents remarked that the procurement laws of this country, if they have to follow to the latter, you probably end up not awarding any contract. So what is the issue? Is it that it's too cumbersome and that we need to have a look at it again? So I think that that's a conversation we have to have as a nation, because obviously laws are made to serve and serve us well. So if we think that the processes are not helping and they are delaying us from delivering development to local people, then obviously we need to revisit it and have a look at it. So that's one.
And we also have the issue of funds transfer. I think there's delay in that.
Absolutely.
And even with that, I think it's not just with the district. I think it cuts across all the other sectors.
I mean, let me give a typical example. 2014, the District Assembly Common Fund was transferred on quarterly basis. By the third quarter in 2014, they have not even received a single transfer for 2014. That is allocations for 2014. Not even a single has been done. The first quarter recently came. Even 2013, the third and the fourth quarter transfer was released sometime in September. So imagine that, and it's not even imagine. They have planned projects that these funds are expected to fund. So assuming they initiated the project sometime last year in July, anticipating that the last two quarters would have come for them to complete the project, it means that they had to wait for a very long time before this would be done. And this is a big issue that we need to really have a discussion, and that's why we are calling on government to ensure, prioritize the District Assembly Common Fund. Often the excuse given is that national resources are not available, and that government will have to mobilize local resources before they can make such allocations. But we think it's a matter of priority because if we think that the District Assembly Common Fund is so important to us, and because that is what provides, you know, health facilities for local people, provide roads, provide educational facilities. So if we want to give it that kind of, you know, priority, then we will ensure that it will be on top of government's agenda each year.
Rachel, one issue that baffles me in this report is how someone would deliberately make an effort to create situations that will compel contractors to offer bribes and then delayed projects. I mean, there's also the issue of delaying project inspection by assemblies. Who are the people who intentionally create situations that will compel contractors to pay bribes?
Okay, thank you. I can only speak on some of the situations, but as to who, this is something we may take up on our next project to look into details. But then situations where maybe a district planning officer will have to sign a document, it may be taken to the coordinator, someone needs to help pull this here, and also through the processes. If you want it to be done quicker, you need to put in some money. But this one I don't have detailed information. So one of the things that we may take on and look into it and find out what and who and how these processes are happening.
Yeah. But Clara, should that be the case?
Well, of course it shouldn't be, but I think it's in Ghana, if we are being honest, it's become parts of public service delivery. If you are a contractor, for instance, you take your document there, somebody has to sign. Go and come back. Sometimes you yourself, you begin to think, is it because the person wants something from me? That's the kind of situation we are describing here. So a district coordinating director may have to sign your papers for you to proceed, and it's not coming, and you are thinking maybe he needs some envelope to be able to proceed. So these are some of the situations that they described over there, that such delay deliberately, and it's not just with the assemblies, as we know in Ghana, it's quite common and with public service delivery in Ghana.
With regards to inspecting projects, Clara, we realize that there's also delay in the inspection because, I mean, from time to time, the district assemblies or the DCEs themselves should go around checking how far work has gone, whether there's a problem somewhere so that they'll get it fixed. And if there's delay, it means that the whole project will delay. What did you find when you went into the community? What is the factors? What are the factors that, you know, led to delay in inspection by the district assemblies?
In fact, that's one of the reasons that baffles me, that a district assembly or any contracting agency, you give work to somebody, just come and have a look at it where I am, and then I can proceed. Also takes so much time for you to be able to do that. And when it comes to monitoring generally in Ghana with our public institutions, it's quite a challenge. Oftentimes they do say that we don't have the logistics to go around and do the inspection, which is unfortunate. And so it's just deliberate. People are you have to go and inspect it so that
but it's a package. If you want to execute a project and you don't have the mechanism to evaluate, monitor and evaluate, then it means that you are always at cost 90 because you can't make a headway.
Absolutely.
If you don't monitor, you will not know progress made. And so should that be an excuse for us to always say that we don't have the logistics to monitor our project?
Absolutely. Like you said, if we were doing proper planning, monitoring should be factored into the project costs. And therefore, the issue of no logistics shouldn't come in at all. And so, is it an issue of attitude that people just sit in the office and do nothing? I don't think so. I think that is an area that we probably need to explore further and see what are the issues and how best we can counter them.
I know, okay,
it also comes to community consultation. If community members are involved in projects, they can also help with monitoring of such projects and also feedback to assembly.
Okay. Wouldn't it be like they are kind of whistle-blowing, because if you've not been tasked to do so and probably there's a problem like that going on and maybe you report to the appropriate quarters, wouldn't the people in charge think that you are, you know, passing their back and going to report them or something?
That's the community?
Yeah, if the community members, for instance, if the work is at a halt, and maybe the DCE doesn't know, and then the community member sees it and goes to tell the DCE that, oh, I've seen that the contractors have stopped working. That's a good thing, but don't you think it also creates some kind of these kind of situations where people think people are reporting?
No, if there is community involvement from the scratch, then no one will feel community members are reporting
them,
because they are involved in the project. So the contractor knows that the community, the project is for the community. There is some sense of ownership. They are part of monitoring. So then the contractor also feels that he owes the community some explanations. Then he wouldn't feel that way.
In fact, I think that, or we think that that is the right thing. That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Because whenever communities are involved, they are the end users at the end of the day. So they need to be able to tell how they want the facility to be done.
Yeah.
Of course, so much interference will also have implications for others. But we had typical example sometime 2013 on one of our projects when we visited the Tarkwa Nsuem Municipal Assembly. There were 2 projects that were done by the Municipal Assembly. One of them, the community did not even know the contractor. The contractor just came, put the structure there, and then finished, gone. And then the other community, the chief was involved. Some of the opinion leader, the assembly member, they are aware. They were introduced to the contractor. They monitored. They helped the contractor. Even gave him a safe place to keep his logistics. When we look at the 2 projects, there was value for money in the project which involved citizens than the other one which didn't. The one which didn't involve the citizens, it was a new school building that was awaiting commissioning. And already the roof was off, and then the veranda was also cracked, and all sort of bad issues with it. So community participation or involvement in project delivery is really, really essential. It has added value to the end
I think it actually cuts costs, because instead of employing officials who will be doing monitoring, now the community people feel that we are involved. It is our project. You don't need to pay us to monitor the project. So I think it's the best to cut costs if we're saying we don't have the logistics to monitor our project. Let's look at what recommendations your findings came out. What were the recommendations? And I'll start with Rachel.
Okay. Before then, I would like us to also talk on the benefits.
The benefits.
On the issue, there have been some great benefits to the District Assembly Common Fund. Some of the projects that they've worked on. So in terms of schools, you go to some communities and we talk about G's ways of working, because they were going to school in other communities, so children had to walk kilometers.
As for the District Assembly Common Fund, it's supposed to be beneficial. I mean, bottom line is we're supposed to get, 100%. It's supposed to benefit the community, isn't it? That's the
that's the main purpose. But then talking about issues, you talk about the
fund. So far, what we've been able to achieve until you were telling us.
I was just talking about some of the project that has been done, and from community perspective, how this has benefited them. So then you talk about these schools. A situation is in East Gonja, where he had parents saying that even economically it's been profitable, because they used to buy bicycles for their children to travel to Salaga, that's a community, to be able to go to school. But now that there's a school within their community, that's Gunshi, now they also they are able to, the children do not have to travel long distances, and they also save some money.
Exactly. Okay. So Clara, you want to talk about more benefits, or you want us to jump straight to the recommendations?
I just wanted to add something, which is also a recommendation, while she's talking about facilities that have been beneficial. I think one thing we also observed, that especially with school buildings, the school building is put there without any furnishing, no furniture, nothing. And we think that to be able to address the issue of quality and access to education. It must be holistic. And so if they don't have school building and you put in up a school building, you should budget, you should include furnishing, give them furniture.
Exactly.
In some situations,
they will not stand in the classrooms
they will not stand in the classrooms to learn. So they should include all those things. In some situations, you find the children a nice school building that they have to sit on the floor and learn, and which does not promote quality learning.
It doesn't give them the conducive environment to learn.
That's it.
I think I'm imagining a community where this District Assembly Common Fund is being utilized, to its fullest purpose. I can imagine how the community will develop, but because of some challenges which we've talked about, we're still experiencing almost half of projects do not complete in time and all of that. But I'm hoping that so what were the recommendations you made to better how this fund is being used?
The first thing is the timely release of the fund. As we've already given scenarios, if you have to wait till the end of the year before even you get the first quarter, then how are you able to even start your projects plan for that year? So we are asking the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Local Government, Rural Development, Parliament, because Parliament approves them, and then the Common Fund Administrator, to ensure timely release of the funds to the Assembly, so that they will be able to commence their project or complete their projects on time. Citizens' consultation is quite key. I mean, if you read the entire report, you will see areas where they were not consulted and the consequences or the ramifications and how the projects have been. Absolutely. So we are asking that MMDAs should involve citizens at every stage of their process, the planning, implementation, monitoring. And like you said, it saves them a lot of money or resources. Citizens will complement them in undertaking their responsibilities.
Rachel, you want to add up to the recommendations?
Yes, also assembly members being resourced. There's at the assembly, there's a structure, there are substructures. So if assembly is well resourced, so you don't expect district assembly to go down to community levels, so that the assembly members can also go down to the community level to be able to get the grassroots perspective and also help in the planning and implementation. So like you said, consultation is key.
Yeah.
Because once the community have accepted and they know this is the project, is for us, then it makes it very more important for them to use it and not abandoning projects.
Exactly. So consultation is key. We've all been looking at how in 2015, for instance, we can better the District Assembly Common Fund, its use and how it can be implemented effectively for maximum benefit. So we're being told that consultation is key, and also early release of funds will help us. So it's been interesting having Clara Osei-Boateng and Rachel Jabandia from Send Ghana, and they're doing some marvelous work over there, monitoring what government is putting or how much money is going into District Assembly. Thank you very much for coming, and it's been my banner. We'll be back shortly with the AM show.